Greetings. My name is Ira. I call myself the South France American because that's my blog, www.SouthFranceAmerican.com. I talk about a lot of stuff on my blog about living in France, what it's like here. If you're interested in more detailed information, different information, www.SouthFranceAmerican.com. If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe. You know the story. I promised I'd talk about COVID this time, so I'm going to talk briefly about how France has dealt with COVID. The first thing to understand is that the rate of death, the number of deaths per 100,000 population in France is very similar to that in the United States. France, Italy, and Spain were the first Western countries to experience the COVID pandemic after it escaped China. And we didn't know what hit us. And so there was a huge spike in Southern Europe, Italy, Spain, and France, because of the virus. Eventually, the United States caught up, and now the United States, even though we believe that France has the best healthcare in the world, the United States, France, Italy, and Spain have similar rates of death per 100,000 population, and that's because of the virus. You get the virus, and a certain percentage of the population die, and everybody gets the virus because it is highly volatile. It's easy to transmit. But we talk about flattening the curve, and what that means is that not that fewer people get the virus, but that fewer people have the virus at any one time. You slow the rate of transmission of the virus. That's what flattening the curve is about. So everybody gets the virus, fewer people at one time, so hospitals are not overwhelmed, and that's what France does. France looks at the number of hospital beds that are available, not just for COVID, but for other purposes. Somebody gets into an automobile accident, somebody has a heart attack, they need a hospital bed. France looks at the hospital beds that are available, and then France determines what restrictions they'll place on the population based on the science. Now, France is not the United States. France has the ability to declare a national emergency and restrict things in ways that the United States could not do, and the French have done that. At the height of the pandemic, when the national emergency has been declared and the science says we have to be most restrictive, France is very restrictive. You can't go out without a mask. You can't go out without a form, either a paper form or an electronic form, that gives your name, your address, your date of birth, your place of birth, and the reason that you're leaving. And those reasons are prescribed, and they're very specific: to buy necessities, to go to a medical appointment, to help a sick relative, to take your kid to school, to walk your dog, to exercise. And even then, those things are restricted. For instance, there was a time when you couldn't exercise more than 1 kilometer from your home for more than 1 hour, and you couldn't do that with friends. You had to do that by yourself. So forms. Curfew. The curfew has been 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. They're actually making it a longer curfew, 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. Through the holiday season. And through the holiday season, the only time that they're going to lift the curfew is on Christmas Eve. On New Year's Eve, the curfew is still going to be 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. No New Year's Eve parties. Now, the point of this is that France has the ability to do this, to flatten the curve in ways that the United States doesn't, and it's a nonpartisan deal. This has to go through the Parliament, and the Parliament votes on these in a nonpartisan way. The last time we locked down, the vote to impose these new restrictions was over 304 and just over 20 against, an 11-to-1 margin in a parliament that the ruling party does not have a very great majority. It was a multi-partisan because the French parliamentary system has more than 2 parties. So it's a multi-party, bipartisan, multi-partisan decision to put these restrictions on the population. Now, these restrictions are time limited, and come March of this spring, they will have to be renewed. If they're not renewed, the restrictions go away. By March of this year, they will probably have started to do the vaccination. So whether or not they're going to extend it through the period of time that the vaccination protocols are finished, I don't know. But certainly between now and then, you can expect that there will be a curfew. You can expect that there will be specific reasons to go out after the curfew. You can be certain that certain things will be restricted. Right now, bars and restaurants are not open, even for outdoor dining. Takeaway food is okay, but bars and restaurants are closed and will remain closed until the middle of January. Right now, we're a little bit looser in that we don't have to carry the forms during the day, that we can meet with friends, which we could not do previously. But we've loosened up a little bit, and we're probably going to loosen up a little bit more in mid-January, particularly if the vaccinations seem to work. So that's the deal. The French have the ability to follow the science and restrict freedoms in ways that you could not do in the United States. And that's the reason why the French hospitals aren't overcrowded. That's the reason why, even though the rate of deaths per 100,000 population is comparable, the feeling is not that the system is in trouble. The system is not in trouble in ways that it is in areas of the United States. We feel very comfortable being here, and we're glad that we made the move. And even though the pandemic has been very difficult for us, as it has been for very many people, we feel much better about having experienced the pandemic here than in the United States. If you have any questions, you can ask them in the comments. Otherwise, please like and subscribe. I hope you've enjoyed this. The next video is probably going to be a little bit more about the French healthcare system, perhaps the way in which we navigated when my wife discovered that she had a small and operable breast cancer. Okay? That's a bit of a cliffhanger, isn't it? Anyway, thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this video.